So we're going to try this again. If you joined us previously, we've had a technical glitch, but here we are again. We haven't, full disclosure, we haven't been able to diagnose or reproduce the glitch. So we're going to just kind of cross our fingers right now that the technology will work.
Yes.
All right. So why boundaries can still feel hard, even with great leaders, even with leaders who have put in time and attention into creating boundaries, instilling boundaries, nurturing boundaries. So, we're going to talk about why that's happening and what you can do instead. My name is Melissa. I'm an executive coach and a management consultant, and I work with great leaders every day. So, I actually get the privilege of working with experienced managers, high level managers, and executives. And I get a real insight into their world. And one thing that's been consistent in all my coaching is boundaries come up. As leaders, we have the role of connecting with people and of working through people. And that is much easier said than done. And in that role, we must hold boundaries. We must hold business boundaries, right? Business context boundaries, our boundaries, boundaries around the team. There's all kinds of different layers of boundaries that come into play. And we need to be able to communicate those boundaries and hold those boundaries in a way that people can still engage, feel good about them, and not put people off, because we don't want to lose motivation and lose engagement in the process.
Yeah.
So boundaries is quite a complex subject for me. And it is one that I get to work with people every day. So I'm quite passionate about this subject. And we wanted to come on live to talk a little bit about this, but today we're going to do something a little bit different. So, as you can see, Kay is joining me today. And Kay
Yes.
is part of my team, and typically she joins me on these lives to bring in the employee perspective. And today she's going to be leading the live interview style. So I'm going to
Ooh,
put Kay in the driver's seat if she is wanting to step into it, and I'm going to take the passenger seat instead. So this is going to
yes.
be a challenge and shifting a
Mm.
little bit of our typical dynamic here. So we're going to play around with that. Okay, we're going to have
Yes.
a little bit of fun. So Kay, over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Melissa. Always up for a good challenge. For those still getting to know me, I'm Kay. I'm Melissa's right hand at In Charge Coaching as a client solutions specialist. Essentially, what I do is I help Melissa deliver value to leaders by equipping them with the right tools and resources that help build great workplaces. I'm also the lead on organizing public facing learning opportunities such as this live. And today, we're going to flip the script, and I'm really excited to dive in and question Melissa.
So what do you want to know, Kay?
Okay, yes, there are a lot of things, but I want to start with so a lot of leadership advice talks about time management or communication techniques, but I see you always take a different angle when it comes to boundaries.
Right.
So I want to ask you, what do you think is missing from the traditional conversation?
Very interesting. Okay. My answer will be a multi-layered here. So
Okay, I'm ready.
the first layer is, I will say that traditionally when we go through training, we're given, you know, tips, tools and tricks and frameworks and all those kinds of things, but they're external. They're like things
Yes.
outside of ourselves that we're going to use with others. Okay?
Hmm.
External. And when it comes to boundaries, it's not solely external. There's an internal component to it.
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
And
There
it's
is.
the internal.
Yes.
And so when it comes to boundaries, a big part of boundaries is our internal communication around boundaries that create kind of an emotional landscape. So, how we think and feel
Mm-hmm.
about boundaries that we want to set. And this could be our personal boundaries. It could be the typical, like leaving work at 5, or it could be how we're going to relate to each other, or what I will and won't do for you as I support you in doing your work. It could be how we will or won't respond to our boss, to our upline as they're making demands and maybe unrealistic demands on our time, our attention, our priorities. So there's what we think and feel internally about that, and that's going to affect how we show up and we communicate. So let's say I give you a communication framework, okay, a communication technique, let's say,
Yeah.
and you have a boundary you want to communicate and you feel really icky about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can give you a script and you can
Mm-hmm.
say all the right words, but the tone, the how you're going to show up in that communication is going to
Yeah.
be affected by what's going on the inside.
Yes. Yes. Most definitely.
So if you haven't dealt with the internal aspect of it, you're going to feel like this doesn't work for you. This technique or this
Mm-hmm.
framework or this tool that you have in your hand, it's not working, it's awkward, it doesn't feel right, it feels robotic, because it is, because there hasn't been this alignment between the internal and the external.
Mm. Yeah. So important.
So to me, I would rather focus on the internal first, because that's where the confidence is going to come from, that's where the assertiveness is going to come from. That is where we're going to really command respect. That's going to
Yes.
come from the inside. It's less to do with the framing and the specific words that you're going to use, and it's more of where it's coming from.
Mm. Yes, that really hits. Yeah.
Yeah, what's coming up for you, Kay, as I'm sharing that, and as you can see, it's hard for me to
Yes.
step in the passenger seat.
Ooh, no, no, it's completely fine. What's coming up for me is like, I so agree with what you just said. Like, if we are not okay internally, even in terms of like, if we have an internal conflict with our boundaries, we won't be able to show that up externally. And that's so true. Because like even now after having done so many boundaries and balance master classes with you, having taken like coaching from you, there are still times when that internal conflict arises for me, and then it's really important for me to balance that out, so it doesn't show up externally.
Yeah.
Very important, very important.
And so that's the beautiful thing that you just said right there. It still arises and it will continue to arise. And when
Yes.
it arises, can you recognize it? Do you know what to
Yes.
do with it? And do you know
Yes.
how to create that internal alignment and show up with confidence, right? It's like, can you then connect all the dots to get the outcome that you want, starting from
Yes.
the inside and
Yes. Yes.
not hitting that wall? So I'm going to add
Mm-hmm.
another layer to this. So I just talked about internal conflict and external delivery. Now I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to add that this is very relational.
Mm.
So when we think about like things like time management, okay, well, time management, that's something that's done on a calendar, right? It's something that we're moving time blocks around, and we're making decisions about things that
Yeah.
don't really have an opinion or feelings or anything like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to give a tool, and we're missing the part that this is actually a relational strategy. It
Yeah.
involves two people or many people, And all
Mm-hmm.
of those people are having emotions.
Mm. Yeah.
And so if you have all the right tools and techniques, but you're not feeling comfortable in that moment, that when the tension comes up in the relational piece,
Mm-hmm.
then we're going to start doing things like backing down or avoiding or not going there. All those missed opportunities when you like show up, you're ready to say it, and then you go, no, I'm not going to say it.
Oh, I've seen that happen. Like, like people hesitating to speak up or hold a line, not because they're unsure, but because they're just trying not to hurt feelings or be too much. Which
Exactly.
leads me to the next question. What are some signs a leader is carrying too much, even if on the outside they seem calm and composed and capable?
Yeah. So I would say that, the need for boundaries exists, point
Hmm.
blank. Like we all need them. We always need to tend to them. We always need to, update them as things are happening, as things change in our role, in our life, in our identity, in our values, in our learning. In our team and our team dynamics, in what's being asked of us, all of these things, as things change and evolve, then our boundaries need to evolve with us. And boundaries are a very internal thing. And so
Exactly.
what we get really, really good at doing as leaders is showing up and doing the hard thing, and
Yeah.
doing it with grace and with flexibility and adaptability. And it's a strength. And also what it's going to look like, it's going to look like you're cool, calm, and collected, you've got things under control, and things are working. But if you look under the surface, you're stretched thin, and you're trying to keep all these things together, right? But nobody sees
Yeah.
that. What they're seeing is this level headed, got it under control, and we're hitting all our marks. So
Hmm.
to your boss, to your upline, to your team, things look okay. So what's happening is on the inside. It's, is going to show up as like internal tension, um, emotions, right?
Yeah.
Unpleasantness, especially in terms of resentment. You're going to start feeling that growing resentment, not because you want to, but it's like things are unfair, right?
Yeah.
Things are unfair that you need to work so hard to keep things together. And there
Hmm.
is a reason for that feeling of resentment. That's a really big cue that we need an update here. We need to upgrade our operating system, and boundaries being part of that operating system. It's also going to show up in the over functioning. So when I talk about over functioning, I mean you're going outside of your scope of your role to do
Hmm.
things and take on responsibilities that aren't necessarily yours, or that had just been defaulted to you, but it shouldn't be yours to carry. So you're carrying more and you're doing more than what you should be doing if we really took a long, hard look at what your role is.
Hmm.
So you're picking up the pieces, you're saving other people, you're stepping into lots of things, and you're just doing more than consistently. And I'm not talking about going the extra mile. Every now and then we go the extra mile because that's who we are. But if you're going, 10 extra miles all of the time, and it's become an expectation of that you place on yourself, that others have come to expect of you, not because they're mean, but because this is how things have been. So they're used to it now. These are all
Hmm.
telltale signs for me that we need to look at things. It's time for an upgrade.
Yeah. That's that's beautiful. I love how you put that. And you're right. Like leaders who are so generous and available might definitely become resentful if they are over functioning and hesitant to delegate and over preparing for meetings. So I think the unspoken labor builds up
Yeah.
quietly,
And you know what,
sneakily.
Kay, when you become finely attuned, so this is what I know for myself, right? Because I've gone through this process over and over again. And I've gone through many iterations and many upgrades of my operating system and my boundaries. So I don't teach and share or coach anyone on anything that I haven't done myself. And I've become finely attuned to that feeling of resentment. And so the very moment that it's just a tiny bit of it arises within me, I go, oh, uh-oh, let's pay attention. So it doesn't have a chance to grow into anything. I can bring it up immediately. And by bringing it up, I mean bringing it up with myself first, what's going
Yeah.
on here, and then have the conversations that get things back on track. So things don't have a time to get off track, really, because I'm constantly making these small adjustments to make sure that we're staying on track.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
wanted to
you're right.
add that piece, and it's so wonderful to be able to do that.
Yeah. No, definitely. You've worked with so many strong leaders. And I want to ask, like, what's one mistake even experienced leaders make when trying to protect their time or their energy?
Hmm. So I'm going to reframe the mistake with like what are the patterns that I'm
Okay.
seeing, and
Yes.
and I'm seeing them through my coaching clients, and I would say that the same kind of patterns I've fallen into as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the first place, like if you think of like what is the root of all of this, it's like our identity plays a really big role.
Yeah.
How we see ourselves in, in general, and then in our role.
Mm-hmm.
And often the leaders that I'm working with, they see themselves as very caring. They see themselves as often they use the term servant leadership. They are flexible, adaptable, capable,
Mm-hmm.
and they have grit, right? I have grit. I'm capable of doing the hard things. And so there's a lot of motivation, and it's a beautiful thing until we overuse and we set ourselves up in a way
Mm-hmm.
that we're now self-sacrificing and not
Yeah.
protecting. So there's that piece. Let me think a moment. There's the other big one that comes to mind here is the fact that we're uncomfortable with emotions. So I think we've been kind of very well trained to not deal with emotions, to compartmentalize. And when sometimes that's really needed and effective, but
Mm-hmm.
we get stuck in compartmentalizing, and we haven't gotten used to taking it out of that compartment and taking it to the table and navigating those emotions, actually leaning into them and doing something productive with those emotions. And when I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying something productive with the emotions, I'm not saying, you feel angry about a situation and you take that anger and you go to the gym. That's just redirecting that emotional energy, and it doesn't
Yeah.
actually solve the reason why the anger came up in the first place. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm talking about when I'm talking about using your emotions productively and leveraging the emotional energy is I'm saying we're going to use that anger or use, that resentment as I used, right? That is something I do productively. I say, oh, resentment's coming up. I know what that means. I'm going to do something with it to resolve this situation so that I don't need to feel resentful anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a transformation that happens. We call that competency navigating emotions. And most leaders and most people haven't built up that skill set.
Interesting. Okay.
And because we have a discomfort with emotions and we're not sure quite what to do with them, that's why we tend to avoid hard conversations.
Hmm.
Because what's going to happen when somebody starts crying, when somebody gets angry, when things blow up? What if they disconnect? What if they shut down?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Those are all behaviors resulting of emotions or emotional reactions to what we're wanting to say.
Yeah.
So the pattern is the avoidance or the delaying, right? I'm not comfortable with having this conversation, so I'm going to blame time, right? I don't have time, which is true. We don't have a lot of time to work with. So I'm just going to put it aside until it's really needed. But by the time it's really needed, it's now a big hard thing.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I've
And
seen
it's
that.
messy
Yeah.
and it's harder to recover. So that emotional piece is really, really key
Mm.
to, to breaking the pattern and setting yourself up.
Yes. Yes, I've seen that in action too. Like sometimes you think being nice is being kind, but it ends up hurting the people around you or the team more because there's no clarity. And as you have taught me, like boundaries are kindness and clarity is kindness. So, yeah, so let's talk solutions now.
Yeah.
What actually works? What actually works? What does it take to set boundaries in a way that feels good and gets respected?
Yeah, well, I think I've been dropping the seeds of that throughout this conversation. First, if we rewind back to the top of the conversation, we talked about the importance of internal clarity. And
Mm,
that internal clarity is going to affect how you communicate,
mhm,
right? So we need to look at ourselves and do that internal work in order for everything else to work. And it's so beautiful when it doesn't feel effortful anymore to be able to convey what you need to convey.
yeah,
Like, it will
I'm sure.
come out with a lot more ease, and you can feel good and feel confident, feel assertive, and know know that it's coming across in a way that the other person can receive it.
Mm,
So the
yeah.
internal clarity is a huge piece. And I'm going to tie in the confident communication. We need to be able to speak confidently and assertively without becoming aggressive.
Very
Okay. So
important.
sometimes what we do is we overcorrect, right? And
Mm,
it comes off, not our intention, but it will come off aggressively and create more tension in the relationship. So we need to be
mhm,
able to be confident and assertive and say what we need to say without um, without causing more tension or conflict.
yeah.
So the communication piece is going to be really important. Now, in the communication, we're going to have some emotions that come up. So that's the third piece here is the emotional fluency, the
Oh, I love that.
skill to navigate and create a new and transform the emotional landscape.
Hmm.
So I don't see it as like one emotion, but I kind of see it as a landscape. And as I'm having, for example, a hard conversations, as I'm going to be noticing what's coming up for me and noticing what's coming up for the other person. And that all becomes part of the landscape that I'm navigating. It's
Hmm.
all relevant to the conversation that we're having.
Hmm. Yeah.
They can all
Yeah.
be useful if used productively. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. And then finally, I would say there's something about your leadership identity, your leadership style, and your values.
Mm,
So, really taking a look at that and finding who you are and what that means for your boundaries and how you want to show up, and
mm,
creating
yep.
some alignment and some congruence there.
Mm,
So then you're showing up, you're talking, you're speaking your boundaries with confidence in a way that feels good to you. And it's going to feel good for the other person. We can still be a servant leader, for example, if that is, your identity, part of your identity as a leader is being a servant leader, you can speak your boundaries in service to another person and in service to the relationship.
Yeah, I love that.
You
And that's
see
something that yeah,
how we can create that alignment
yeah.
through to your communication and still be able to speak that. And boundaries are going to be the things that create the context that keep us
Mm-hmm.
balanced.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
as I'm saying that, you can start thinking about like why I've named our masterclass Boundaries and Balance, because we
Yes.
want balance, and we want balance throughout the 24 hours of our day, not just after work, not just a feeling like, oh yeah, I'm kind of enjoying life, I'm kind of doing it okay at work, but we're feeling balanced minute to minute and hour to hour as we're going through things. And the boundaries are going to create that container to give you that stability.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And that's something that I've learned working with you, that boundaries are not about control, they're about congruence. And when leaders own their space, it creates space for others as well. So, Melissa, you talked about boundaries and balance masterclass just now. We have
Yes.
a masterclass coming up, and that really dives deeper into all of this. What can
Yeah.
people expect if they join you?
Oh, well, they can expect a little of everything that we just talked about today. And more specifically, we're going to take time to slow down and take a look at that internal component, because boundaries are not something that somebody can tell you to instill, or that you can read in a book and say, oh, okay, if I instill these boundaries, I'm going to be good to go. It's really unique. It's almost like a fingerprint. So I'm going to be
Yeah.
leading everyone who comes to the masterclass through an activity to create that clarity. What is the fingerprint for you? What is that unique framework in terms of boundary that you're going to need to set up for yourself to create that balance? So
Mm-hmm.
that's, first part. We're going to deal with the internal, then we're going to create some, we're going to look at the communication piece, right?
Yeah.
How do we start communicating this? We're going to look at what mistakes we do in terms of communication. There are a list of things that we do that create power struggles when we're trying to communicate boundaries. So we're going to look at that and what to do instead. And then we're going to look at creating respect for these boundaries long term. So, what's going to help us actually set it up in a way that it's going to feed itself and earn us the respect? And it's going to be not just respect from your team, but respect from your peers, your colleagues across different departments, so horizontally, and respect from your upline.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what we're going to cover. And essentially, what I'm giving is an insight into what I actually do with my clients. With my
Ooh,
high
I
level
wouldn't.
executive clients, this is exactly the system that we're using to produce the results
Mm,
that they're having at their level.
yes, yes, and I wouldn't want to miss that. So, it's happening on July 22nd at 12 p.m. Eastern. I will be dropping the links in the comments. Melissa, do you want to add something else, like the duration and
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a 2 hour class.
yeah,
2 hours, it's going to be an investment in yourself. So you're going to actually get back some time if you do decide to invest that time in yourself, because you're going to get that time back in being able to create those boundaries and protect your time. And
yeah,
maybe have some of those conversations that have been eating up some of your energy in a way that feels good and is effective. So 2 hours on July 22nd at 12 p.m. Eastern. So for my Atlantic folks, that will be 1 p.m. Bring your lunch. You can totally eat on camera. That doesn't offend me at all. So bring your lunch, come as you are, take a seat, and be ready to participate. So make sure that you're bringing something to write with. We're going to have a workbook for you. So you must show up live to get the workbook. And from there, if you do want to participate and realize that there's a conflict in your schedule, we will be sending out the replay for a limited time period for the ones who do register. So know
Yeah.
that if you're really excited about this and you're just not seeing the opportunity in your calendar, still do register. We'll send you the replay and we'll communicate with you through DM to make sure that you've been able to get the information and apply for yourself.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So inchargecoaching.ca/masterclass is where you go to set yourself up completely free. This is my gift to you, and it's a masterclass we just launched in January. We've already done 4 masterclasses, and it's been phenomenal. So we have
Oh,
decided to do it one more time. We hope to see you there. If you've come and you've enjoyed the masterclass, come again. There's always something for everyone. And what I've noticed with people who come and relive the experience is they get something a little bit different. So they sharpen. I use different examples, and the questions are different every time. So there's always a little something different. Bring your friends, bring your colleagues, bring anyone who you think would benefit from this. And it can be a really great learning experience as a group, because then you can um, be operating from the same mental framework, right? As you
mhm.
support each other to integrate it. So that's it.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
No, no, we're all good.
Good.
So,
That was fun. That was really fun. I actually enjoyed just being, just kind of sitting back and responding to. So
yeah.
thank you, Kay. Thank you for stepping into that, and hopefully we'll do more of these Q&A style
Oh, I'm ready. I
trainings.
love it. Yeah.
All right. So for everyone watching, please leave me a note. I'd love to know what nugget you're taking away from today's session. It really feeds me and it helps me bring more of value to you when I know what is hitting home, what is landing, and what you want more of. All right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And have a beautiful week. Happy Tuesday,
Yes.
everyone.
Happy Tuesday. Bye.